we're going to jump right in because who wants to watch? And look, she just pushed the record button. Who wants to watch a video that doesn't get to the point? That's my whole message this life. That's the truth with kids. Less words. Write this down with kids. Less words, direction, and clarity. If you start talking to kids and giving them the blah-de-blah, they glaze over. They're not interested, and you're just talking to yourself. Kids need bite-sized bits. Just that's how I talk, like to children, so that they hear you and they retain what you've said. Otherwise, you're just talking to yourself. Like, you have to pretend you've got a mind that's a lot smaller than yours, like their brains. So the content that comes into their heads has to be required to be very succinct. And I always use the lines with my kids, give me your eyes. Like, make eye, this is true. All this, everything we're going to say today works for your inner child. There's not a lot of difference between those little people and your little people. The only difference is you got a big body, but you still have a little brain in there with a little heart and little things. Little is the key word. So when you're working with children and you give me your eyes, I used to say, give me your eyes, then you make contact and you give them your directive. And that's true with everybody. If you're giving somebody information and you're talking too much, you can tell immediately when you've lost their attention. And you can feel like you're going on and on and on, like I am right now. But I made my point. Talk less, succinct, give me your eyes. My other big warning when I was a mom in full-time position as a mother, I would say, uh-oh, here comes me, mom. When you have that impulse that operates in your psyche where you can feel your tensions growing or your frustrations mounting, and the kid's going to say something and you don't even know why it's pushing your buttons because they've done it 5,000 times, but you're ready to cough, then you say to the kid, hey, mean mom's coming. You guys, everybody calm down. I can feel it. Take ownership. We are responsible as the mother, as the guardian, to provide the safe place. The kid's coming to you as a role model to feel what it feels like to lean into someone who's got stability. If you're not stable and you're not taking care of yourself, I have a pregnant mom that's been staying with me for the last week or so, however long it's been, and I've been watching and teaching her about take care of yourself first. That oxygen mask thing is so important. If I'm not centered and grounded, there's no way I can be a mom. So we're going to go through a whole conversation here, but I can tell you that mean mom, the awareness of you being frustration mounting and you about to lose it and warning your kids before it starts to happen. Like, uh-oh, you do that once more and mean mom's coming. My kids would go, mean mom. The nanny I had used to say to me, I don't like your mean mom, Debra. Yeah, I don't want anyone to like my mean mom. That's a high enough motivation for me to take responsibility for my internal world, for them to know that they have the ability to push my buttons and then to change the energy. So mean auntie, call it whatever you want. And if you're losing it, as someone, Amber just said, it's just because you're not taking care of yourself. And there's nothing more important in this world, said the Cancer, than to do self-care. And what does self-care mean? It means that I used to get up really early in the morning before the day started to go for my swim, because if I didn't take care of my energy, how could I be making breakfast with love and making lunch with love and cleaning the dishes and doing all those things? You know, we have a few things that's required of us. Let me go to my, here we go, my outline. So here's the deal. Kids come with batteries included, but no instruction manual. They arrive in your house and they have this incredible,
Debra,
yes?
We can hear a little bit of feedback from the wind. Can you like maybe turn your computer a little bit or something so that it's not like staticky? Is there any way you could move? Or I know it sounds amazing for you, but for us it's a little bit of feedback.
Even right now, because it just died down. Okay.
Not right now, just every once in a while it kind of picks up.
Here's what I'm going to do, just for you, Carrie. I'm going to put the end to the wind. Watch this. Bye-bye, wind.
Thank you.
That's a hard thing to say to a Gemini, just in case you know. I'm breaking wind, said Carlos. Yeah. Does that sound so much better?
Yes, much better. Thank you.
It makes me kind of sad.
I know,
okay.
Sorry.
Kids come with batteries included, no instruction manual. It's just the truth. I know the Gemini had to get rid of the wind. That was not a good thing. Yes, this is Carrie Nichols. You just named it. So kids come with batteries included, no instruction manual. They're unbelievably energized, and you live in the dark because no one gave you the instruction manual how to be a mom. No one taught us. And our role models of our dysfunctional families were terrible. So this is what I'm going to speak to you about. First things first. How do I ground myself, to Nicole's point? If I feel guilty, the deepest wound inside every cancer psyche, it's such a crazy story, is they don't feel worthy. The human condition and the terms of cancers of mothers is that they feel like they shouldn't come first, everyone else matters more. They feel self-conscious about being so vulnerable, emotional, and they tend to be somewhat secret keepers, and they just don't want anyone to feel like they're taking up space. It's a very deep, old, well-worn path in the amygdala. It's like the animal part of the brain, where the feminine principle is self-conscious for having needs, and she only finds fulfillment in serving the other, and that gives her life meaning. So without the sensation of someone needing her, she doesn't feel like she has function or the right to go shopping, to spend time for herself, to feed herself first. Someone said the way you can tell when you see two horses, which one's the mom and which one's the kid, is the mom is pushing food towards the kid. The kid never pushes food towards the mom. I love that analogy of seeing two horses and you can't tell which one's older until you see the mother feeding it. So the instinctual mothering energy is to go feed the baby at the expense of the mother. But what we've come to find out in the evolution of the feminine principle is if I'm not taken care of, if I don't do what's required to get my energy in full form. So I want to ask you, just anybody, whether you're a mom or not, what's your value system around your well-being? Like, how much do you prioritize your health? For me, I start my day every day in the either yoga or swimming or meditation. If I don't take care of my energy first, I couldn't be here for you, because I'm not in my full battery charge. How do I charge my battery, plug it in first before I go off and spend the day with the kids? But the big problem is, yeah, exactly. I dance 6 days a week. All the women know what it takes to keep yourself well cared for. And the wound inside a cancer is, I should take care of them first. I have no time for myself. I remember taking yoga, and then I would leave before Shavasana was totally finished because I had to go home and make dinner. I could always never understand how do mothers take yoga in the evening and not go. So I organized the yoga, but I knew that I had to get out because my value was still about being at home and cooking. So the question is, where's the dance and the mixture of the mother self-care, because she deserves it, because she knows how much happier the household will be when she does herself first. It's just contrary to what we've been programmed with. That's the truth. It's a contrary truth that somewhere, if you don't put your oxygen mask on first, you can't function. So just use that analogy. When I had my first child, it wasn't really my first child because I'd been raising two others, but they came already built. One was like 3 when I arrived in her life. But when I had my son, I remember bringing him home from the hospital and I was in rapture, like the endorphins and the hormones that happens when you breastfeed. And I was falling madly in love with that little face, which I do happen to have a very handsome child. And I remember thinking this thought, and I want you to all think this with me. If I love this being so much who just fell out of my tummy and is now on my bed on my breast, and I'm looking in the eyes of this person that I don't even know that just arrived here, and I'm madly in love. I'm in love. Who else is floating around in the ethers that I can't remember, who I'm in love with, who could easily land in my bed and be in my boob like that? So the question is, how many people do we love? And how is it that children elicit such passion? And where else can I find unconditional love at the same level that we do our child? There is something magical that from the moment that baby arrives, you're in rapture, you're in true devotion. And that same feeling can happen when you get your dog. You know how the puppy comes home and you fall in love with that puppy and you're like, who gave me this one? Like, I didn't pick it. Maybe you went to the Humane Society, but nonetheless, it was put there in your face because God's will, better known as fate, put these people in your house. And so what you want to realize is you have a love affair that's about to occur with your child. And it's true with husbands too. It's really true with husbands. These people get sent to you and you don't realize that you've signed up with them because we don't have a very clear memory. That's one of the hardest parts about being human is you lose your memory as soon as you're born. So you get the whole download. They say in the Kabbalah that your life is shown to you before you arrive. And then the moment you're born, you forget everything. And at the moment of your death, they do a review. What if it's been written that these children would end up in your life, even the ones that are super difficult, where there's karma? I know some of you in the room, it's just that it was nothing but karma. And you had to work and shovel, and it was a really difficult relationship. That too was part of the plan. So the point of the story is there are beings that you're in love with who are both coming to be your child, your dog, your puppy, your neighbor, me. And then there's beings who are totally teaching you, who are stalking you to see if you can be kind and you can find a way to allow yourself to see if you can sustain a passionate relationship with your fate. So just take a moment. It's Monday morning. I want you to ask yourself, what is my relationship with my fate? What they gave me, my kids, kids grow up and they leave. It's so painful because you spend that time with the baby on your boob and then the baby in the house and then the baby's Velcro and you can't get the baby off you. And then the baby goes to school and then you feel so sad. And then the baby goes to college and oh my God, and then the baby gets married. Then the baby moves out of state. Who made that up? That you would bond with your deepest soulmate and then they leave. So weird. Yeah, and then your adopted older children who hated you, Gloria. You're not alone, Gloria. It is a classical story. It's not just husbands and children and puppies and dogs. It is the karmic beings that were your kindergarten best friend. Like, think about the kids you grew up with on the street you grew up with. That was fated. And if you're smart, you can start preparing for the future. So sometimes I think, God, I meet somebody and I think, oh, my next lifetime, I've had this thought. I want them to be my kid. I want to be their mother. I love that person so much. So we fall in love, and your kids are your soulmates for sure, Malika. They're soulmates. They come in pods and you are stuck together, and there are people you don't know who you're in love with. There are people right now that are floating around that are watching you. Just put your attention in your room right now where you're sitting. Whether it's your parents that have passed away, whether it's a spirit that's been devoted to you, whether it's a being that you knew that came across time and has been following you around, there are really, truly beings in this planet that we can't see that we're devoted to, just like your kid before you met them. Who would have thought that you'd find that person to come live with you and you just love who they are so much? Isn't it the karma of Europeans that left their families for America? I don't know what that means, Stephen. You're having your first baby, Elise. She's a Virgo. So here was the prayer. You guys are going to love this. Ready? Here was the prayer that I said every day during my pregnancy. And you can steal it. Send me a being more conscious than me that I can be its teacher as well as its student. That was my prayer every day. Send me a being more conscious than me that I can be its student as well as its teacher. And that's what they sent me. Oh my God, did I get a wake being who was definitely way more advanced than me when it comes to so many things. Sometimes it's embarrassing when my son says things to me where I'm like, about business, where I'm like, I should have listened to him. He's an old soul. And you all have beings that are, some of them are really young souls who you have karma with, who came in and said, I'm going to trigger the shit out of you to see if I can help you grow. And some of you have kids that left too soon, that died. What is worse than a mother losing a child? Being so madly in love, and then the kid goes, and the mother has to deal with that wound. And I've had clients like that. And I say to those clients, I'm making this very simple. You will never get over this. So if people say to you, time heals, it takes the stinger out, but the stinger never really gets taken out for real. That's what you have to know. When there's death, when there's a loss, did you hear somebody screaming during that?
I didn't hear it.
Carlos did. It was so funny when I said the loss of a child is the most intense in the whole world, and then somebody yelled. Yeah, so these are faded stories, but we're talking today about the child that comes to your house, batteries included, no instruction manual, you don't know how to be a mom. This being is either a soulmate of yours that you've been with for lifetimes and you're madly in love, or it's a challenging soul that came in to teach the poop out of you. And by the way, as a parent if any of you are considering having babies, when you're pregnant, you do that prayer. Send me a being more conscious than me that I can be its student as well as its teacher. I made it up. I don't know that you choose your parents before you get here. I do think there's assignments. I don't know that they gave you a list of a menu and you sat and you pointed at, I'll take them and them. I don't think it's that direct. I think there is a karmic pattern that's organic, just like the trees growing in the fall and the winter, that there's this incredible organic movement that occurs here. So is it true in the heavens. You see it in astrology. There's a perfect order. And so there's a natural design and things find their placement. So yes, all you need is love, love, Carlos. Okay, I love what you're saying. And you know how children, and I think this is another thing that happens, by the time they reach 11 girls, they get kidnapped by their soul. Their soul goes away and their egos come in. They don't like their mom and they don't like their dad. And by 13, you're like the dumbest person they ever met. And by 15, they just want to push up against you. And then about 22, they come home and go, I love you so much, Mom. And you're like, really? That was a long movie. So what happens is they go through progressions of evolution. And if you're a wise mother, here's a big deal as a mom and as a dad. When your child pushes up against you, you surrender and you say, take some space. I remember this moment when my son said to me, I was in his bedroom about to rub his back to put him to sleep. And he said, Mom, you know what? Don't come in my room anymore at night. And I was like, what? And he said, you know, when I close the door, don't open the door either. And I was like, really? Okay. So I kind of left the room going, that was kind of painful. My kid's growing up. And I called one of my best friends who has 8 kids. And I said, this is what he said. And she was like, yeah, don't go in the room and keep the door shut. And the next day on the way to school, he said to me, Mom, did I hurt your feelings last night? And I said, well, yeah, you did. And he said, well, too bad. Don't come in my room at night. You know, that love affair that happened when they were little and they stick themselves to you and they adore you and they want to marry you. And then they reach this critical point where they have to individuate and they have to push up against you to feel themselves. And so where once my son loved astrology and he studied it with me, he was in all the classes. Now he's like, thanks for sharing. And I have to honor the fact that his chart is clearly gifted as an astrologer. He's got a natural 3 planets in the 11th house, Sun and Moon and Venus, all in the 11th. But I can't possibly suggest to him that he's meant to do that. The gift that we give our children is we say, especially from 11 to 13, when they really start to not want to be inside their body as it is growing, we have to free them up by getting out of their space and stop doing this. So you pick your battles, and most of all, you pick the information you're going to give them. Like, find that less words are more with children. I think you all know that. Oh, Kimberly, he wants to learn astrology. We're heading in that direction with my 11-year-old son. They get 11 years old, something happens. So this is something I want you all to hear. Householding, according to the work by the Autobiography of a Yogi, if anyone's read that book, he says the highest spiritual road for enlightenment, to gain enlightenment, is to be a parent. Because the immediate thing that happens, if you think about it, is you surrender your ego. It's no longer about what you want to eat or when you want to eat or where you want to go or whether you want to take a trip or it's all about your kid's schedule. So when are they in school? And when is there a holiday? And when do they have to go to the doctor? And when do you have to stay home from work to take care of them? It's no longer about you. So it's the perfect journey for a spiritual aspirant, that's what they call it in Alice Bailey, or a person seeking enlightenment, to have a family. Because you have to take your ego and squish it. You've got to know how to do self-care, what we talked about to start with. You've got to be able to prioritize your well-being on a daily basis, but not at the expense of the kid. You can go work out, you can go do yoga, you can go do whatever you want to do, but you're not going to be able to ever, if you're being a good parent, put their needs in front of you. Okay, so number one, the highest road is, it's so beautiful, is this whole conversation about being enlightened. Now, here's another one you're going to love. Your children reflect your unconscious. So if you look at your kids and you say, oh my God, I had that adopted kid and I totally didn't get along, and what does that mean about me? It means that some part of you this lifetime was wanting to really process your shadow. And sometimes if you've got Scorpio in your chart, you came in this life to really work about how do I process my shadow? Well, my kid, whether it's drugs or alcohol or whether it's sex, these are all our shadows that the kids bring back to us to visit. So my relationship with drugs and alcohol and sex had to get visited when I was working with my son and my stepson. I raised 2 children for 7 years. Their father passed away. I think some of you know that. My son's father passed away. Then I had another son right after that came in and lived with me for the next 5 years. And I feel like a mom to a lot of kids is the short answer. And what I found, I think, to be said about this whole conversation of letting the kid become your reflection is they're giving you their unconscious material. So for example, one of my stepchildren didn't really know how to work. No one taught him. Well, my unconscious is my nature, my whole system is built for work. I'm all about service. That's my single most important thing to contribute this life. Why do we come to be alive? But to serve each other. So when I saw this lazy kid, I was like, whoa, this lazy kid became lazy because of the imprint of his parents that he was acting out their unconscious. But I got introduced as a step parent. And my job was first to honor the pain. Here's a big piece for kids. So now I'm giving you lots of content today. You have to be with the kid where they're at. You cannot change them by giving them information. It's not how it works. You have to, what I call amplify. So if a kid comes in the room and says to me, I'm so pissed off. You don't say to them, no, don't be pissed off. You can deal with this. You say, yes, you are pissed off. You echo, you amplify, you acknowledge the energy, and you don't change it to start with. So let's say a kid comes in the room and says, Susie hurt my feelings. She always hurts my feelings. You don't say, no, it's okay. Susie didn't mean to. You say, yeah, you got your feelings hurt. And Susie can be so mean to you sometimes. Tell me what happened. You encourage and you amplify. You tease it out. You let the emotional body of a child, whatever they're feeling, be accepted. That's the only way you're going to get into the change pattern. Otherwise, you're going to start talking to yourself. You shouldn't be sad. Susie didn't mean to do it. You know, Susie, she's got a bad childhood. Her mom, shut up, Mom. I'm sad. And the only way to do that is because you're emotionally stable enough, back to doing your self-care, starting the day with your meditation, making sure you're solid, that you don't feel rejection or mad at them, or you don't feel like you have to get their approval. You're okay with being miserable. You're okay with them being mad at you. You're okay with them being mad. If your emotional body can't handle waves, don't have children. Because children's job is to rock the house, disrupt you, cry in the middle of the night, wet their diaper, figure out that's what they're here for. And then your ego is all disrupted. Well, that's right. The job of the child is to help you diminish your ego. You want to write that down? And you're right, Carlos. My mom shouldn't have had kids. My mom had all that she ever said to me when I was a kid. You're so sensitive. It was like a curse. Like she made me so wrong for being so responsive to the neighbor's kid being hurt, or me wanting to help everybody. Like she was like, how do you criticize the kid's natural rhythm? I'm exaggerating. Ivanka, where am I exaggerating? Okay, so here's the deal. You let your child have a feeling. You give them permission to be in that sad state. You don't take away their pain. You amplify it. You encourage it. Listening without judgment. And, that's what your mom used to say to you. You're exaggerating. It doesn't matter what your mom, it's funny, Ivanka. It doesn't matter what your mom said. It's so interesting. It's true. What your mom, my mom's unconscious mind couldn't stand sensitivity. Why? Because she had a grand trine in water, and she had no idea how to deal with her water because she was a Leo. So when she saw her daughter being so sensitive, all she wanted to do was like, stop. And that was the most unnatural thing in the world. It put a big division between us, because how was I supposed to turn my emotions off when I had Mars in Cancer and Neptune in Scorpio and Sun of the 8th house, and I'm a mush. Yeah, exactly. Your mom can't stand your fire, Carlos, and she's a Sag. It's the projection. So what you're meant to do, you guys, is one, thank heaven for little stars. You pray. Another big piece. And there's a meditation. I don't know, Carrie, if they're on the website where they are, but I did a meditation for moms meditating on their kids, where you can hold them as able. Like if your kid, it's really hard. There's nothing harder in life. The two hardest things in life, the death of a child, nothing compares to that. And your child being in pain and you can't do anything about it. Let's all cry. So whether it's psychological pain or it's addiction or it's physical pain, there's nothing in the world that is, as Sting told me this line, I love this, I'm sure you've heard it, that you can only be as happy as your most saddest child. So when your child's sad, you're done. God, do I know this one? So then the job is, how do I weather through the discomfort of my child's pain, through the loss of my life, of my love, of my life, whatever it is, because I have enough wisdom, because I did my meditation or my yoga or my swim or my run, or I turned on my observer and I read a book, and whatever you do to come home, watching one of these. I hope today that we can meditate on all the children on this planet, that they could have conscious parents who encourage them to be who the child was. That's another point we're going to make. That we can encourage them to be who their child was, let them be in their own nature, and not try to change the kid to match you. How many of us want our kids to eat what we eat, to dress like we dress, to do the job that we did, and forget completely this kid is an individual? It's so beautiful, Daisy. I pray for better children everywhere, Jessica said. Yeah, this is religion for me. You're so right. This is my religion. The children, I can't think of a more important topic. If I really had 3 more Debras, if I could clone myself, many years ago, I would have written a book called Conscious Parenting. And I would have based it on astrology, which we haven't addressed yet, but I would have based it on astrology and saying, here's how you deal with each of these kids. I did a lecture once in LA, like in 1995, at the Lowe's Hotel. The LA Parent Magazine endorsed a speech that I did, a talk. It was a big deal, and they advertised it in their magazine, and it was all about me acting out. It was very funny, the 4 personality types based on the elements of the kids and what mothers should do with them. Oh my God, that was so funny. I can't write that book, Nina, because I'm a little busy. So householding is the highest road. The kids are the new improved version of yourself. If you clean out your unconscious, you'll watch your kids. I love, Kiki, when you talk about your son and your daughter and how much your son is so fire, and you allow him to be him and you don't get in the way. Or when we have these Capricorn children, all those kids born in 1989, and they're so unbelievably grumpy. And then the mom calls me and says, what's wrong with my kid? I'm like, your kid has 5 planets in Capricorn. This is not a happy childhood. You couldn't get this right if you wanted to. These kids come with their own karma. Yeah, Jessica, you're probably one of those. Okay, so you're looking at your child and you're seeing your unconscious and you're trying to make peace with that, and you're trying not to change the kid, but to encourage the kid to be themselves. So if you're a mom and you have a child who's really watery and they don't like to talk and they cry a lot, or they go into video games and they get lost, or they have this tendency to be really reclusive in their bedrooms and you don't know what they're doing, your job is to go in their room and not talk and match their energy, and then amplify. Remember this word for children, amplify what they do. Don't try to change it. You know how sometimes, okay, let's keep going, the kid's error and the kid doesn't stop talking and they go on and on and on and on and on and on. You're in the car and they keep talking, and then you say to the kid, you know, I'm not really listening to you. I just know you're talking, but I want to hear you. Can you slow it down, or can we take some notes? I always tell moms with kids with lots of error, write it down. Like, say, honey, I know you wanted to talk about Susie and you wanted to talk about going to the movies and you wanted to talk about where you're going to camp. I'm going to write these 3 things down. I'm going to put them in my phone right now. We're going to keep, but you got to stop talking right now. Thank you, Carlos. I really want people to learn about the value of being a parent. The whole world would change in half an hour if we knew the holy act, the highest road of enlightenment is to be a parent. If we knew that this idea of the new incarnated version of ourselves was just hot off the press, they just arrived in the new version, God just redesigned the psyche, and these children are coming in, these indigo children, these beautiful children, and they're coming in and they're saying things like, I want a mom and a dad who will let me be me, and I want to change the planet. I want to make a difference, but I'm so little and I'm so confused by how little I am considering how old I am. And where's the parents that will say to me, one, you need boundaries. I don't care how old you are, you're still a kid and I'm in charge. Two, I will listen to you and you will listen to me. Three, we have some ground rules. And the first ground rule that I teach children, and I tell mothers this all the time, is when they're about 3 or 4, good time to start, at lunch or breakfast, you say to them, the first rule of the universe, write this down. The first rule of the universe is to know when to stop. If you can get a child to know when to stop, right before they're about to throw my son, double Aries, he's going to throw the ball at the nanny. I go, Daniel, what's the first rule of the universe? Know when to stop. The impulse comes up, but I put it in place by having dinner. We're all sitting together at a meal, and I say, what's the first rule of the universe? Know when to stop. Everybody put your plate down. Just stop for a minute. It's Tantra. The first rule of the universe is to know when to stop. And if you can do that, if you as an adult can find out, the kid can say to you, Mom, stop, that will change everything. And I had to teach my kid, particularly the little one, I had the cutest little girl, I miss her so much. She talked all the time, Aquarius, which I don't mind, and she had moon in Sag, Jupiter on her moon, and she just this little girl was so entertaining and so funny and so talkative and so funny and so witty and so wild and so Sag. Now, if you have a Sag kid, what are you going to do? You're going to tell them to sit down? Well, you're going to say, hey, what's the first rule of the universe? Do you know when to stop? And often they're not going to know when to stop. Ding, ding, ding. It must be true. Bells are going off. Kind of makes me happy when the phone rings. Just sounds like an angel's getting its wings. Did you know that when bells go off, angels get their wings? Listen. That was like 4 angels just got wings. 1, 2, 3, 4. Angels got their wings. Angels got their wings. That's what those little people are. These kids are coming in and they want to be initiated by you. What the kids want in this lifetime is parents who realize that their ego is not the most important thing, that they must have boundaries and know when to stop. They must know when to say to their kids, stop. That is so funny. George and Clarence just got their wings. Have a meal with your kid as a family and just listen to them. Not happening today. I wish I'd heard all this when my children were little. Now I'm a grandma and all this is making sense. We never had any education how to be a parent. And I think why I was so into it, why it mattered so much, was because my parents were sound asleep. I never had any parental direction, zero. So when I had these kids, all I wanted to do was, and you know, the other thing is, you probably noticed this, those of you that have been watching me for a while, is that I'm a kid. And all I really wanted as a kid and as a grown-up was to be heard. So all a kid wants to do is be heard. So when my son or my kids are talking, I always listen to them and stop and turn back. And this is so Cancer, Aquarius today. I always stop and go, what did you just say? I didn't hear you. Oh my God, it's such a relief. But that means you have to be able to stop time. First rule of the universe, know when to stop. You guys, I can't right now do this because it's so funny. My daughter-in-law was listening to me do one of these webinars, and she heard me say that I would say out loud to the kids, like when Daniel was little and I had Lauren and James and they were all in the house, and I would say, uh-oh, I could feel mean mom coming and I was losing it and I forgot to take the time out. So I went to, so funny. So I went to swim because I was a swimmer, and I'd say to them, I'll be right back in an hour. And I would give James, the oldest one, like, you're in charge. Michael, their dad was at that point in a wheelchair. I'll be right back. And I would run out, and she said, God, it's kind of scared her. Like, could you just leave the kids hanging? Well, it wasn't quite like that, but I knew how to do self-care, because if the mean mom's coming, what are you going to do? Because that's knowing when to stop. That is the rule of knowing when to stop. My smallest son says, Mom, if I don't push it a little bit, I don't get anything. Oh my God. And isn't it the best when those kids tell you the truth? So the water kid needs you to touch them and to not talk. The air kid needs you to write things down and remind them what you're going to say later. The earth kid needs a structure and a plan, and you have to really honor earth kids. They want to know that you're going to be on time to pick them up at school. They want to know that this assignment is going to get done and they've got their mama on their team. They want to know that you're not going to change plans on the weekend when they're going to see their best friend. You being stable, your kids are contagious. Your kids give you their patterns and then you take them on and you shapeshift to fit and match them. That's where your ego goes aside. And those fire kids, they are so loud and they're so enthusiastic and they're so juicy and they have to be put outside and you got to let them play and be wild. And sometimes it's hard to have those kids. We are the little scientists. Your routine was everything. I need to send your book to my friend. You do that. Okay. How to listen to the kid and not interrupt. You want to write that down? How do you listen to your partner and not interrupt? How do you actually hear what they say? And then you go, what did you just say? I love doing that. It's my favorite thing. What happens when your child is 45 and still disrespectful? You stop playing with them. Listen, do not endorse disrespect by keeping it going. You're allowed to say to your kid or adult, this is not working for me at all. No one talks to me like this. There's no one in my world but my kid that can be that. And I just say, hey, that is not working. How to listen to your child and not interrupt. Amplify what they said. Pick your arguments. There's some kids you do not want to argue with. Oh my God. If you have a fire kid, what are you doing? Why would you do that? Know what matters and just go, listen, I'm not arguing with you. That's what I say to my double Aries kid. We're not having an argument. I'm not even interested in your opinion. I have mine, you have yours. I'm not interested. You don't have to be the everyone loves you, the mom that everybody loves. You have to be yourself. Like whoa. I remember when he was little, he said, women should never be presidents of the United States. I was like, okay, I don't know who was your mother. She's clearly not very present for you because you know how powerful women are. But we're not going to talk about this because I'm going to start going off. Women should be, you're talking to yourself. When they're at that age where they're rebelling, they don't care what you're saying. They're not even caring what they're saying. Hello. I think we're just about getting ready to be done. Self-sufficient units. It's okay to give your kid a job. Oh, this was one of the things I wanted to talk about before we finish. There's this thing where kids have no boundaries anymore. Like we trust them, we give them power. And my kid, all of my kids, including the lazy kid, I was like, I'll give you money. I'll help you. I love to be generous. You will work. So my kid learned how to work at the age of 12 and 11. And he went into an office and to this day, he can't work in an office. He came home, he said, Mom, I will never be living inside of a box. That's helpful. Okay, are there any questions? Malika, I miss you too, Malika. We're going to see you in December.
I had a few that came through, but I was wondering, the one that I liked the most was, can you talk a little bit about the moon sign in relation to the mom and how that shows up in your chart and in your kids' charts?
Totally. My son is in school. He's only 24. And my other son is working in a marijuana plant, the one that was kind of lazy, but he figured out the job. It's sort of funny. My son's also an electrician, being trained as an electrician. And he's going to be a psychologist when he grows up. I know what's going to happen, but we can't talk about that. Okay, so I can't go into the future with your kid. The trick is the moon describes your mother. So my moon was in Aries. I had a fiery mom. Daniel's moon is in Aries. He had a fiery mom. You can tell the nature of your mother by your moon. Now that describes that each kid's going to see you differently. So let's say your kid has moon in water. And he's super sensitive. You might have been representing to him as a mom, a very sensitive mother, even though to your other kid, you were really feisty. Jenny is asking about the class. And you guys are just going all over the place. And Hannah wants to know what the father is represented by. And I'm telling you, we're going to talk specifically right now about the moon. It's a great question, Carrie. How does the moon reflect your mom? One, how does it reflect your mother? And two, how will it reflect your kid's relationship with his mother? Look at his moon, it'll give you a clue. The answer to your question, Jenny, is we're just going to finish all over the place, said Kiki. Yeah, we go all over the place. The moon is an error for your kids. Well, you probably talk a lot, Kiki. So here's the deal, you guys. There's three things I want to announce today. While we have 225 people in this room. One is the class begins in August. The cart opens to learn level 1. And I'm going to encourage all of you that are interested in your children. The most important thing to learn about is you. And level 1 is a deep discovery. It's a self-transformational course. It's based on astrology. You're going to use your chart to study. But essentially, you're going to go into where's my fixations and where's my shadows. Once you figure out your shadow, you can see your kid. The cart opens in August. Francesca, do you know what the class, the school starts September 11th. But yeah, Martina, thank you, Martina. It's like a 6-week retreat. Yeah, that's what it is. When does the cart open in August?
Mid-August. I think it's like the 15th or something. But if you go to the link that I just put in the chat and put in your information, we'll tell you as soon as it's open.
And the class is $1,000. And it is expensive for some people, but it's life-changing. It's not, you'll never be the same after that class. And you're welcome, you guys. And by the way, the other thing I'm so excited about is starting in September. I don't know how many of these free webinars we're going to keep giving. I'm sure we'll do some. But there's going to be a $22 a month fee for all of you in this room. I hope all of you do it. For my membership program that's starting in the last week of September. But you'll hear more about that. Sign me up, Mary said, for the membership. I'm so excited about that. I'm so excited, Mary, to see who signs up and how many of you want to get weekly and monthly information. Thanks, Hannah Davidson. I like your name. Sounds like a good Jewish girl, Hannah Davidson. Thanks, Ellen. I'm so glad you got up for this, Rainey. All right, Kimberly, see how we are having so much fun? Okay, I think we did it. Love you too, Judy. I wish my Judy was here. Ava Goodman. Oh, you're going to sign up for the membership. Kimberly, your mom's name is Debra. We're in good company. Okay, tell me your takeaways before I leave. Tell me what you're going to take away from this webinar about parenting. Less is more, Ellen. So true. Make time for yourself. Malika, do you do that? It's so important. Sweden. Self-care, Jane Foster. What matters more than self-care? Put your oxygen mask on first. The first rule of the universe. Yeah, the first rule of the universe. Know when to press the stop button. Just listen. Amplify what they're doing at their level. Exactly. That's so important. Don't try and make your cancer child stop crying. You can let them cry. Then you got to say, okay, that's enough. You don't want to let it go on forever, but yes, encourage them. It's okay to cry. Women can become presidents, said Hannah. You know when to press the stop button and to love and encourage sad feelings. Deborah Hoft. You have 10 grandkids? I wish I had 10 grandkids. Please go back to the moon. It's just look at your own moon and then you'll get a clue on your mother, Linda. And then look at your kid's moon and you'll see how they're relating to you as their mother. No one is 10 years old. I'm 10 years old. Love yourself so you can love your family. Aspects to the moon are less important. We're just specifically directing the moon's relationship is going to describe the mother. Crazy, said Jessica. All right. Anything else, Miss Carrie?
I think that's it. I just want to add that we go deep into moon signs and everything in applied astrology as well. So if you're interested, it is mostly for your chart, but you can apply it to your kids and your husband and everybody else's chart. So you'll learn a lot more about your kids' nature in class as well.
I love the psychotherapy piece too, Alice. But to Carrie's point, in the beginner's class, if you just take level 1 and like you save up your money, here it is, we're in July, August, September, and we have payment plans. So we've got 3 months. So if you put $300 away each month under the bed, or even if you put $150 under the bed and you just did it over a year, you can, and there are scholarships. Yes. Yeah, we're going to have a little more scholarships this year. So you guys know you can write to apprenticeship at Debra Silverman Astrology. And Debra, you know, is Debra. Apprenticeship at Debra Silverman Astrology. I watched your webinar today on children and I really want to take this class. That's what you say. And you know about my book. Yes, you guys, the book called The Missing Element. You can send them that link. You know what I do with that book? I sign it for you guys and I send you a chart. Hannah Davidson has it in front of her. I didn't like the cover, but everybody else seemed to. I hated the cover, actually, but I love the inside. And the moral of that story is don't tell a book by its cover. If you want me to sign your book, just there's the click that Carrie just put up there. You go on my website and you just click on, I know those photos. Aren't they amazing? Thank you, Lisa Francis. Okay. I just finished your book. It's so dead on, I couldn't stand myself. That is so funny. That's like when I learned the Enneagram, there was a big panel of people in this room and they did every number. The Enneagram is an amazing tool. And when they did my number, I was I was so embarrassed. Like I couldn't stand myself. I was like, that is so embarrassing. Does Carrie feature in the photos? What does that mean? Does Carrie feature in the photos? No. Yes, human design is another fascination I have. Is Carrie in my book? Carrie is not in my book.
Maybe the next one.
You, Kimberly, guess what you think I am in the Enneagram. I miss you since the ship, said Lisa. Oh, that's Lisa's talking. How great you are, teacher. Thank you, Lisa. You think I'm a 7. That's funny, Kimberly. I'm a 2 with a 3 wing. I don't have enough Stephen perfectionist for a 1. And I'm not really a party animal, Kimberly, but I'm such a 2. And my moon is in Aries. A 2, you guys go look up the Enneagram. It's such a crazy tool. Well, you know what, Kathy, you can talk about the Canadian to US funds, the exchange. I agree with you, Kathy. If you want to write to apprenticeship at Debra Silverman Astrology and say, I'm Canadian, because I have a great sympathy for Canadians, you let us know you're Canadian, and then we'll see what we can do to help, because the exchange rate is so unfair. You're right. Okay, now I got to go answer the phone. Bye, you guys. It was my pleasure. I love you all.